A neighborhood tyrant demolished my garbage bin 57 times using her expensive $60,000 SUV, prompting me to swap it for one made of concrete and witness her wreck her own vehicle. What began as morning vandalism concluded with legal consequences, a $12,000 payment, and one costly education about targeting the incorrect neighbor for harassment. Imagine this scenario. The distinct sound of breaking plastic rings out through the quiet morning air, accompanied by metal scraping against pavement as a white Escalade drives off quickly, scattering my refuse like party decorations across my driveway once more. However, bullies never anticipate their targets retaliating with genuine concrete proof. When everything was finished, this unofficial neighborhood enforcer had wrecked her personal vehicle, revealed a $47,000 theft operation, and discovered the difficult truth that certain neighbors won't be bullied by paperwork and pretend power. Honestly, how would you respond if your neighbor essentially treated your belongings like a demolition competition every morning? Leave your thoughts below and mention your location. I'm curious if this type of HOA chaos occurs in your area as well. Allow me to rewind and explain how this entire situation began. I'm Marcus Holloway, 45 years old, and I've worked as an electrician for 22 years. Recently separated, working toward shared parenting of my two adolescent children, Emma at 16 and Tyler at 14. Our home is in Pinewood Gardens, a uniform HOA community in Ohio's suburbs, where grass must measure precisely 2.5 inches and mailboxes are limited to 3 authorized colors. 3 years back, immediately following my divorce finalization, I purchased the corner property home. I thought it represented a new beginning, private bedrooms for the children, quality schools, secure surroundings. I didn't anticipate dealing with Brenda Whitmore, a 52-year-old widow who designated herself the community's compliance watchdog, an unofficial title not found in our HOA regulations. Incidentally, Brenda operates a white Escalade larger than certain studio homes. She relocated here approximately 3 years ago following her husband's passing. Childless, no longer working after her career managing a downtown bank. This woman has memorized every HOA regulation and handles our community fees like her private funds. Her friendship with HOA President Gerald Thornfield essentially grants her immunity. The geographical layout matters significantly. My corner property location requires placing my garbage container near the roadway each Tuesday morning. Municipal regulations specify within 3 feet of the curb, positioning it exactly where Brenda conducts her daily power walk precisely at 6:15 a.m. The initial incident occurred on a Tuesday in September during the second school week. While preparing the children and brewing coffee, with the garbage truck's diesel rumble still 20 minutes distant, suddenly, crack. The noise of plastic shattering like a gunshot. I hurried outside, discovering my trash can destroyed, refuse distributed across my driveway, like someone exploded a confetti bomb containing banana skins and coffee grounds. Brenda was reversing her Escalade, lowering her window, wearing this artificial worried look. "Oh dear," she remarked, completely lacking sincerity in her tone. "These roads are simply too narrow. I trust you weren't particularly fond of that worn thing." Worn thing? I'd purchased it 7 days earlier for $23 at Home Depot, yet I remained composed. I assumed it was accidental. I dedicated 20 minutes collecting wet cereal containers and coffee filters while diesel fumes lingered in the morning atmosphere. Emma and Tyler observed from the front window, mortified their father was crawling around the driveway wearing pajamas. During that initial week, it repeated 3 additional times. Identical pattern, 6:15 precisely, that engine rumble, the nauseating sound of plastic meeting steel, followed by quiet as she departed. By Friday, I grew suspicious. By the next Tuesday, I understood it was deliberate. Mrs. Olivia, my senior neighbor opposite the street, verified my suspicions. She takes the extended route deliberately. She informed me in her measured English. Sufficient space on the opposite side, yet she steers near your container each time. I attempted rational discussion with Brenda initially. I encountered her on the sidewalk during one of her afternoon patrols. Regarding the trash can matter. However, she interrupted me wearing this sweet smile. "Marcus, I recognize you're unfamiliar with communal living. These roads were constructed for standard-sized vehicles, not oversized containers obstructing traffic patterns. Perhaps you should adjust placement timing." "Placement timing adjustments?" as if some enchanted hour exists when the garbage truck doesn't require the can at the curb. That evening, I began investigating property rights, HOA regulations, municipal codes. I discovered that trash cans positioned on public right-of-way still represent personal property. Furthermore, our HOA lacks specific regulations regarding placement timing or construction materials, merely requiring they remain hidden from street view except on collection day. By month's conclusion, I'd replaced 4 trash cans totaling $92. The children were growing anxious about the daily conflict, and my custody assessor was documenting neighborhood stability concerns. Change was necessary. That's when the smirking commenced. Brenda started establishing direct eye contact during her morning destruction runs. This satisfied smile indicating she understood precisely what she was doing. The battle was on point. 2 weeks into October, Brenda advanced from property damage to psychological combat. Returning home from a construction site, I discovered a certified letter awaiting, the type that creates stomach discomfort before opening. The heavy paper felt costly between my fingers, and the fresh printer ink smell indicated this wasn't some standard letter she'd been holding. Improper trash receptacle placement creating traffic hazard. It stated in official legal terminology that would impress a paralegal. Section 4.7.3, no obstruction of vehicular traffic patterns. The deadline, 72 hours to correct violation or face $50 daily penalties, but she'd clearly expedited this through the system while the board remained confused from my documentation at the previous meeting. My years troubleshooting electrical codes proved valuable here. When something appears incorrect, investigate deeper. That evening, I examined municipal law like hunting down an electrical fault. Following 3 hours cross-referencing city codes with county regulations, I struck gold. City code explicitly mandates trash placement within 3 feet of the curb on collection day. More significantly, HOA authority terminates at the property boundary. They literally cannot regulate public right-of-way. That I recalled reading about a comparable California case where a homeowner defeated their HOA using this identical reasoning. I dedicated the weekend constructing my defense like preparing for the electrical contractor's examination again. Ring doorbell camera position perfectly capturing the morning pattern. $47 for tranquility. Professional survey verifying my placement satisfied all city requirements. I even persuaded Mrs. Olivia to supply a written statement, though her hands trembled slightly while signing it. "I don't desire problems," she whispered. "But this isn't proper." Meanwhile, Brenda actively played social media prosecutor. She flooded the Nextdoor application with posts regarding irresponsible homeowners endangering children and hazardous corner obstacles, forcing conscientious drivers into opposing traffic. The comments section transformed into a conflict zone between her 3 dedicated supporters and everyone else who believed she'd completely disconnected from reality. Then arrived the development demonstrating her desperation level. A friend at City Hall, Dave works in the permit department, we've completed electrical projects together, contacted me Tuesday morning with intriguing information. The city had received 4 distinct complaints regarding my dangerous corner. Each alleged different witness viewpoints, yet clearly authored by the identical person. The timestamp revealed them all submitted within 15 minutes at 2:47 a.m. Professional detective work. Marcus. Dave laughed over the telephone. Either your community has an epidemic of sleepless residents with matching writing styles, or somebody's working late building a case against you. By Thursday's board meeting, I'd assembled a folder substantial enough to overwhelm anyone. The community center carried the scent of industrial carpet cleaner and decades of tedious municipal gatherings. 12 homeowners appeared, a record attendance that had President Thornfield nervously adjusting his tie every 30 seconds. Brenda occupied the board table wearing a navy blazer screaming, "I'm serious." However, I noticed the slight trembling in her hands reaching for her water glass. She anticipated what approached. When they requested old business, I stood holding my documentation. I'd like addressing the violation notice concerning trash can placement. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the room became absolutely silent, that I recited the city ordinance verbatim, presented my survey results demonstrating perfect compliance. The finishing touch was casually mentioning my consultation with Amanda Sterling, a property rights lawyer who'd managed numerous HOA cases. She discovered the selective enforcement patterns particularly fascinating. I added, observing Brenda's face pale. President Thornfield cleared his throat thrice before speaking. Well, this demands further examination. We'll postpone this issue pending additional consideration. Translation: they possessed nothing and everyone understood it. However, Brenda wasn't finished. As we departed, she confronted me in the parking area beneath the buzzing security lights. This revealed her genuine character. "You believe you're so intelligent," she hissed loudly enough for the dozen homeowners still conversing nearby to hear every word. "People like you enter decent communities believing rules don't concern them. Well, I have information for you. This is merely beginning." Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Street actually gasped audibly. Jim Torres, our maintenance worker, suddenly discovered his keys captivating. The racial implications lingered in the humid October atmosphere like fire smoke, apparent to everyone present. My phone, positioned casually in my shirt pocket, recorded every toxic syllable. That evening, Emma questioned why the unpleasant woman despised us. Tyler wanted understanding if we'd need relocating again. I settled them into bed, assuring everything would resolve. Yet privately, I calculated this war's expense: 3 replacement trash cans, 14 hours documentation, attorney consultation charges accumulating. However, something had transformed in the community. Other homeowners whispered regarding board excess, questioning uncomfortable matters about selective enforcement. Brenda's parking lot breakdown had exposed what many suspected. This wasn't concerning traffic safety or community standards. It addressed power, control, and positioning people she disliked in their place. The following morning delivered a revealing change. Rather than her typical aggressive ramming strategy, Brenda drove past my trash can at crawling velocity, examining it like a general strategizing her subsequent attack. The pattern was changing, signifying greater problems approaching. November struck Pinewood Gardens like an icy blow, and Brenda retaliated even more forcefully. While I congratulated myself on winning Phase 1, she actively weaponized every obscure HOA regulation she could locate. The woman had apparently dedicated weeks examining our community guidelines like a prosecutor constructing a RICO case. The assault arrived in stages. Initially, a violation notice regarding my grass height. Apparently 2.75 inches exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum by a criminal quarter-inch. Then my mailbox color, which had faded from heritage blue to what she classified as unauthorized weathered navy. Finally, 3 minuscule tears in my window screens requiring a magnifying glass to detect. Each violation imposed a $50 fine with 10-day payment deadlines. The significant point: I dedicated an entire Saturday afternoon touring the neighborhood with a measuring tape and camera, documenting identical violations on 14 other properties. Gerald Thornfield's grass approached 3 inches. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox had faded to approximately my shade. Half the Maple Street houses had screen damage from the summer hailstorm. Yet somehow only my violations warranted official attention. While Brenda played bylaw prosecutor, I enjoyed coffee with Dale Kowalski at Home Depot's contractor desk. Dale's been pouring concrete for 23 years. When I mentioned my trash can difficulties, his weathered face displayed a knowing smile. "You understand," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee with a paint stir stick. "There's nothing in city code regarding what materials you can utilize for trash containers. Plastic, metal, concrete, provided it contains garbage and satisfies size requirements, you're acceptable." That conversation planted a seed that would develop into Brenda's worst nightmare. 60 pounds of concrete mix, steel rebar for reinforcement, and a clever modification to a standard plastic shell. Total expense: $47 versus the $350 I faced in mounting fines and replacement cans. However, initially, I needed addressing her harassment campaign. I dedicated Tuesday evening creating comprehensive photo documentation of every comparable violation in our community. Wednesday morning, I submitted a formal complaint with the HOA board regarding selective and discriminatory enforcement patterns. Here's something I discovered from managing electrical permits for 2 decades. Bureaucrats despise when you utilize their own systems against them. My complaint forced the board to either enforce rules equally across all properties or acknowledge they were targeting me specifically. Neither option benefited Brenda. The genuine twist emerged when I began analyzing the demographics of her violation targets. Throughout the past year, Brenda had issued 67 violation notices. 49 went to single parents, elderly residents, or minorities. Only 18 targeted married couples or longtime homeowners. The pattern was so evident, it practically screamed lawsuit that I recalled reading about Fair Housing Act violations. Property management discrimination and HOA enforcement can trigger federal investigations. The thought of Brenda explaining her citation patterns to a civil rights attorney made me smile for the first time in weeks. Friday afternoon, I commenced my weekend concrete project. Emma and Tyler thought it was amusing, assisting me mix cement in the garage while classic rock played on my paint-splattered radio. The setting concrete smell recalled memories of helping my dad pour our basement floor 30 years ago. That distinctive alkaline scent signifying something permanent being constructed. The engineering was simple yet effective. Hollow bottom section for weight distribution, drainage holes maintained for functionality, exterior appearance identical to every other trash can on the block. From outside, it appeared completely normal. Inside, 60 pounds of steel-reinforced concrete waited to teach Brenda a physics lesson about immovable objects. Monday morning, I positioned my newly reinforced trash can in exactly the identical spot as always. 6:15 arrived right on schedule along with Brenda's oversized engine rumble. However, this time, something differed. Her approach was slower, more cautious. She'd obviously noticed the can looked identical, yet somehow felt suspicious. The first collision occurred at approximately 15 mph, her usual ramming speed. The sound was completely different. Rather than that sick crunch of breaking plastic, there was a solid thunk followed by metal screeching on concrete. Her Escalade's running board bent like aluminum foil while my trash can sat there looking mildly offended that I observed through my kitchen window, coffee mug warm against my palms as Brenda sat in her SUV for a full 30 seconds, clearly confused by what had just occurred. She revved the engine and attempted again from a different angle. Same result, more damage to her vehicle, zero damage to my concrete fortress. The beauty of the whole setup was its complete legality. No city ordinances violated, no HOA rules broken, just a homeowner upgrading his trash receptacle with better materials. If she wanted continuing ramming it, that was her choice and her insurance claim to file. Throughout the next week, Brenda made increasingly desperate attempts damaging my concrete creation. Each collision left new scratches and dents on her pearl white Escalade, while my can remained smugly intact. The irony was delicious. Her own aggressive behavior was destroying the very vehicle she used as a weapon. By Friday, her SUV showed nearly $800 in accumulated damage. Mine showed a few scuff marks, making it look more authentic. The neighborhood was beginning talking, and for once, Brenda wasn't controlling the narrative. By mid-November, Brenda had transformed from neighborhood busybody into full-blown private investigator. The woman was so obsessed with my trash can that she'd probably dreamed about it in flowcharts and conspiracy theories. I'd catch glimpses of her pearl white Escalade, now sporting a growing collection of dents and scratches, cruising past my house at odd hours like some suburban stalker. The first sign of her detective work arrived on a Tuesday morning when Mrs. Olivia called, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus, that woman was in your driveway last night with a flashlight and some type of scale. I watched from my bedroom window. She was attempting to weigh your trash can." I had to laugh at the mental image. Brenda, probably in her navy blazer and sensible shoes, sneaking around my property at midnight with a bathroom scale, solving the mystery of the indestructible trash receptacle. The woman needed a hobby that didn't involve trespassing. Her investigation intensified throughout the week. Jim Torres, our maintenance worker, mentioned she'd cornered him at the hardware store, interrogating him about concrete purchases and asking which residents had bought unusual materials recently. She'd even begun stalking my social media accounts, searching for construction hints in my Facebook posts about weekend projects. The twist really demonstrating her desperation came when she attempted weaponizing city bureaucracy again. Thursday afternoon, a building inspector knocked on my door, a tired-looking guy named Pete, who clearly had better things doing than investigating trash cans. "Ma'am filed a complaint about potential building code violations," he explained, checking boxes on his clipboard with the enthusiasm of someone completing tax forms. Something about unauthorized concrete structures on residential property. I walked Pete around to the trash can where he spent about 30 seconds examining it before shaking his head. It's a garbage container, not a foundation. No permits required, no violations present. Honestly, I've seen people construct entire sheds without this much scrutiny. However, Brenda wasn't finished with her official harassment campaign. The following week brought a notice from the HOA demanding immediate access for compliance verification of my property. The letter, obviously drafted by Brenda and rubber-stamped by President Thornfield, claimed they needed inspecting my exterior modifications for safety violations. This is where my research into property rights proved handy. I'd spent hours reading about Fourth Amendment protections and HOA authority limitations following that first violation notice. The landmark case was Narrett versus Lakeside Village, where courts ruled that HOAs can't conduct fishing expeditions on private property without specific cause or emergency circumstances. An MY response was polite yet firm. No private property access without a court order or genuine emergency. If they wanted inspecting my legally compliant trash receptacle, they could examine it from the public sidewalk like everyone else. The smell of Brenda's frustration was almost as satisfying as fresh concrete. Meanwhile, her vehicle was becoming a rolling advertisement for steel-reinforced concrete durability. Each morning brought new collision attempts, and each attempt left fresh damage on her Escalade. The running board now hung at an angle like a broken wing. Her front bumper sported spiderweb cracks, and one headlight housing had developed a concerning rattle. The neighborhood was beginning noticing. During my Saturday morning coffee run, I overheard 3 different conversations about that crazy woman who keeps hitting the same trash can. Mrs. Rodriguez had begun timing Brenda's morning routine, while the teenage kids on Elm Street had apparently started a betting pool on daily collision outcomes. Emma found the whole situation simultaneously hilarious and embarrassing. "Dad, kids at school are asking if we're the family with the concrete can lady," she told me over dinner. I don't know whether hiding or taking credit for having the coolest revenge story in the district. Tyler, ever practical, wanted knowing if we could sell tickets to the morning entertainment. "Seriously, Dad, we could charge $5 and fund my college education just from neighbors wanting front row seats to the demolition derby." The real breakthrough came when Patricia Lopez, the only reasonable board member, pulled me aside after a neighborhood gathering. In hushed tones near the community center's coffee station, she shared intelligence that changed everything. "Marcus, you need knowing Brenda's been having private meetings with Gerald about enhanced enforcement authority. She wants the board authorizing property inspections, material restrictions, even contractor background checks for homeowner projects." However, Patricia's biggest revelation was financial. She's also been pushing hard for approval of maintenance contracts with some company I've never heard of. Every time we discuss the budget, she has these detailed proposals ready, like she's been planning for months. That night, I started a different type of investigation. If Brenda was this obsessed with controlling neighborhood projects and pushing specific contractors, maybe her motivation wasn't just power. Maybe it was profit. Public records are amazing things when you know where looking, and municipal contract databases tell interesting stories about who gets paid for what. By Sunday evening, I'd uncovered something making her trash can obsession look like small potatoes. Brenda Whitmore wasn't just a control freak with excessive free time. She was running a scam, and my concrete fortress had accidentally threatened her entire operation. Sunday night research sessions used to be for assisting Emma with her history papers or Tyler with algebra homework. This particular evening, I was deep in the city's public contract database, following a hunch that Patricia Lopez's warning had planted in my brain like a splinter. I'd started simple, just searching for any recent business registrations involving the name Whitmore. What I discovered made me set down my coffee and lean closer to the computer screen. Whitmore Construction LLC, formed 6 months ago, listed Brenda Whitmore as 40% owner and her husband Richard as president. The timeline made my skin crawl. Company formation in May, first HOA maintenance contract bid in July, harassment campaign against me beginning in early September. The dots connected themselves with surgical precision that I dedicated the next 2 hours diving deeper into public records, and what I discovered would have made a forensic accountant weep with joy. Throughout the past 4 months, Whitmore Construction had been awarded 7 different maintenance contracts by our HOA board: landscape edging, sidewalk repairs, community center touch-ups, playground maintenance, $23,400 in total work. The bidding patterns told the real story. On every single contract, Whitmore Construction had underbid the competition by exactly $50 to $100. Not enough appearing suspicious, yet just enough guaranteeing selection. It was like watching someone play poker with marked cards. Technically legal moves, yet obviously rigged. Here's what really made my electrician's brain click into overdrive. Brenda had voted approving every single one of those contracts. 7 votes, 7 approvals, 7 payouts to her family business. The conflict of interest was so blatant, it practically had neon signs around it that I recalled reading about fiduciary duty violations during my earlier legal research. Board members are required disclosing any financial interests in vendor contracts. Failure doing so violates state nonprofit corporation law and opens the door to both civil lawsuits and criminal fraud charges. The evidence was sitting right there in digital black and white. Business registration documents, HOA meeting minutes, contract award records, bank deposit slips from the association's monthly statements. Brenda had been using her board position funneling community dues directly into her family's bank account. However, the timeline revealed something even more damning. My first polite conversation with Brenda about the trash can incidents, September 15th. First questioning of maintenance budget at the monthly board meeting, September 3rd. She'd started her harassment campaign exactly 12 days after I'd innocently asked why we were spending so much on basic repairs, then why concrete trash can hadn't just been blocking her morning power walk. It had been protecting evidence of systematic theft from 127 homeowners. The scope of potential violations made my head spin. Civil liability for financial mismanagement, criminal exposure for fraud, automatic removal from the board upon proven conflict of interest. This wasn't just about property rights anymore. It was about corruption, embezzlement, and a woman desperate enough destroying evidence that she'd waged psychological warfare against anyone threatening her scheme. That I printed everything, made digital copies on 3 separate cloud services, and immediately emailed the complete file to attorney Amanda Sterling with a note. Urgent review requested. Criminal implications possible. The power dynamic had just shifted completely. Brenda thought she was fighting some divorced electrician over trash can placement. What she was actually facing was exposure of a fraud scheme that could land her in federal prison and bankrupt her family. Tuesday morning, I watched from my kitchen window as she made her usual collision attempt with my concrete fortress. Her Escalade now showed over $1,200 in accumulated damage, while my trash can sat there like an immovable monument to her stupidity. However, for the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't thinking about trash cans or HOA bylaws or morning demolition derbies. I was thinking about justice, community protection, and the sweet satisfaction of watching a bully discover that their victims sometimes bite back harder than expected. The war was about commencing in earnest. Tuesday evening, my garage transformed from a weekend workshop into a war room that would have made Pentagon strategists proud. I'd cleared out the workbenches, set up folding tables, and arranged 5 mismatched chairs in a circle around the evidence board I'd constructed using construction paper and red string like something from a crime thriller. The core team assembled by 7 p.m. sharp. Mrs. Olivia arrived first, clutching a thermos of jasmine tea and looking nervously determined. Jim Torres showed up still wearing his maintenance uniform, tool belt jangling with each step. Patricia Lopez brought a stack of HOA financial documents she'd borrowed from the board files. Dale Kowalski rolled in last, carrying a box of donuts and grinning like we were planning a surprise party instead of exposing municipal corruption. "All right," I said, taping the final timeline chart to the garage wall. "Here's what we're dealing with." The evidence layout looked like something from a federal investigation. $23,000 in questionable contracts, 7 separate conflict of interest violations, 47 documented harassment incidents, and 1 increasingly damaged Escalade serving as rolling proof of Brenda's deteriorating mental state. Patricia whistled low when she saw the financial analysis. I knew something felt wrong about those contracts, but I never imagined it was this systematic. Every time I questioned the expenses, Brenda had these detailed justifications ready, like she'd rehearsed them. Dale examined the vehicle damage photos with professional interest. "That bumper is costing at least $2,000 fixing properly. The alignment issues alone will eat through tires like crazy. Your concrete can's turning her SUV into a very expensive life lesson." We dedicated the next hour organizing our multi-pronged attack strategy. Jim would monitor Brenda's activities and document any retaliation attempts. Mrs. Olivia would coordinate the door-to-door campaign, gathering neighbor support. Patricia would work the inside game, building board member consensus for a financial audit. Dale would serve as our technical consultant on any construction-related evidence. The legal strategy required delicate coordination. Amanda Sterling had confirmed we had solid cases for harassment, financial fraud, and board misconduct, yet timing would be crucial. File too early, and Brenda might destroy evidence. Wait too long, and she could complete whatever cover-up she was surely planning. That I'd learned something important from 22 years of electrical troubleshooting. Complex problems require layered solutions. Fighting HOA overreach with just property rights arguments is like attempting fixing a short circuit by replacing one fuse. You need addressing the whole system. Our approach would hit from 4 directions simultaneously: legal pressure through criminal complaints and civil lawsuits, social pressure through community organizing and petition drives, political pressure through media attention and municipal oversight, financial pressure through audit demands and contract cancellations. The community organizing phase started Wednesday morning. Armed with professional presentation materials and irrefutable documentation, I began visiting every house in Pinewood Gardens. The response was overwhelming. 89 signatures supporting property rights, 34 demanding immediate financial audits, and 12 volunteering for testimony at the upcoming board meeting. Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Street nearly slammed her door before I could explain the situation. 5 minutes later, she was furiously signing the petition and muttering Spanish phrases that probably weren't complimentary to Brenda's character. That woman tried fining me for having my garbage can out 15 minutes early, she fumed. 15 minutes? Like the garbage police were timing us with stopwatches. The opposition mapping revealed interesting patterns. Brenda's hardcore supporters were exclusively long-term homeowners who'd benefited from selective rule enforcement. The fence-sitters were mostly newer residents afraid of property value impacts or board retaliation. Everyone else was ready seeing some accountability. Media preparation took 3 days of careful planning. Channel 7's investigative unit specialized in municipal corruption stories, and reporter Sarah Kim had covered similar HOA scandals across the metro area. The press kit included professional timeline graphics, expert legal opinions, and 12 minutes of edited video showing Brenda's escalating collision attempts. The social media campaign exploded faster than I'd anticipated. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group gained 67 members in 4 days, with neighbors sharing their own stories of selective enforcement, harassment, and financial irregularities. Someone posted a time-lapse video of Brenda's morning routine set to circus music that went viral throughout the suburban community network. Meanwhile, my concrete trash can continued serving as both evidence and entertainment. Thursday morning brought collision attempt number 53, resulting in a headlight housing that now dangled like a broken tooth. The neighborhood kids had started gathering at bus stops early, just witnessing the daily demolition derby. Emma reported that her friends at school were calling our house the place with the indestructible trash can. Tyler had started charging classmates 50 cents each, seeing the video compilation on his phone. The story was spreading beyond our community faster than gossip at a church potluck by Sunday evening. Everything was coordinated. Board meeting scheduled for Tuesday night. Media interviews arranged for Wednesday morning. Criminal complaints prepared for Thursday filing. 118 residents committed to attending the confrontation, with 17 planning speaking during public comment. The coalition was built, the evidence was bulletproof, and Brenda had no idea what was coming. Time bringing down the hammer. The weekend before our planned board meeting ambush, Brenda went completely off the rails. Desperation has a particular smell, like burnt coffee and panic sweat, and it was practically radiating from her every move. She'd obviously sensed the walls closing in because her harassment campaign escalated from annoying to potentially criminal faster than her escalade could hit my concrete fortress. Saturday night, I was jolted awake by the hiss of spray paint. Through my bedroom window, I could see a dark figure crouched beside my trash can, illuminated by the motion sensor lights. By the time I grabbed my phone and stumbled outside, they were gone, leaving behind amateur graffiti that spelled "MOVE" in bright orange letters across the concrete surface. The beautiful thing about spray paint on concrete, it pressure washes off in about 30 seconds. The beautiful thing about security cameras, they record everything in high definition, including license plate numbers of pearl white Escalades parked 3 houses down during the incident. Monday brought a new harassment level. An anonymous complaint to the gas company claimed I'd been conducting suspicious excavation activities that might damage underground lines. The utility inspector who showed up was apologetic yet thorough, spending 2 hours with detection equipment before confirming what I already knew. No digging, no violations, no problems. Honestly, he told me, loading his gear back into the truck, whoever called this in either has serious vision problems or serious psychological problems. There's no excavation anywhere on your property. The twist revealing Brenda's true desperation came Tuesday morning. Jim Torres found me at the hardware store, his weathered face grim with concern. Marcus, she hired a private security company watching your house. Riverside Security. I know the owner's cousin. $200 a day for surveillance on a trash can dispute. The woman's lost her damn mind. However, Brenda's surveillance worked both ways. My upgraded security system had captured her drive-by inspections, her midnight photography sessions, and her increasingly erratic behavior patterns. The woman was unraveling faster than a cheap extension cord, and every moment was being documented for posterity. Wednesday brought the discovery that made me genuinely angry. Emma came home from school upset, having overheard Brenda talking to another parent about dangerous neighborhood influences and inappropriate role models for community children. The racial undertones weren't subtle, and the implications for my custody situation were crystal clear. That evening, I hired Beth Morrison, a retired police detective who specialized in harassment investigations. For $200 daily, I could have professional documentation of Brenda's stalking behavior, plus someone with law enforcement experience testifying about escalation patterns and threat assessment. The sabotage attempts intensified throughout the week. Someone poured what looked like battery acid on my concrete trash can. It left a small stain, yet no structural damage. Anonymous complaints flooded the city about everything from my lawn height to my electrical work permits. Fake negative reviews appeared on my business Google listing faster than I could flag them for removal. However, the most shocking discovery came Friday evening. Tyler was working on his bike in the driveway when he found something unusual attached to my work truck's undercarriage. A small black device with blinking lights and magnetic mounting. "Dad," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "What's this thing stuck under your truck?" GPS tracker. Professional grade. Probably cost $300. Definitely illegal when placed without consent. I photographed it from every angle before carefully removing it and driving straight to the police station. Officer Derek Martinez took the report with the weary expression of someone who'd seen this type of escalation before. "Mr. Holloway, this moves beyond neighborhood disputes into criminal territory. Unauthorized surveillance, stalking, harassment. We're building a case file that could result in serious charges." The insurance fraud angle developed simultaneously. Brenda had filed a $3,200 claim for road hazard damage, claiming her collision occurred on a city street rather than my property. The problem: my Ring camera footage clearly showed deliberate targeting of my trash can from multiple angles over several weeks. When State Farm's investigator called for an interview, I was ready with a complete evidence package. 53 documented collision attempts, witness statements, video compilation, and professional assessment of the damage patterns. The investigator's reaction was immediate and decisive. "Ma'am, this isn't road hazard damage. This is intentional property destruction with an expensive vehicle. We're denying the claim and referring the case to our fraud unit for criminal investigation." The community pressure was building like steam in a pressure cooker. Our Facebook group had grown to 94 members, sharing increasingly outrageous stories of Brenda's behavior. Mrs. Patterson reported harassment about her rose bushes. The Johnsons on Oak Street had received violation notices for children's sidewalk chalk art. Even Gerald Thornfield was privately distancing himself from her actions. Saturday morning brought collision attempt 57, this time resulting in a completely detached bumper that Brenda had to retrieve from my driveway. The sight of her crawling around in her business attire, gathering plastic fragments while neighbors watched from windows, would have been hilarious if it wasn't so pathetic. By Sunday evening, the evidence compilation was complete. Criminal behavior documented, witness statements notarized, financial fraud exposed, community coalition organized. Tuesday's board meeting would be less of a confrontation and more of a public execution. Brenda just didn't know it yet. Monday morning, 12 hours before our planned board meeting showdown, Brenda made her most desperate move yet. Gerald Thornfield called an emergency closed-door session addressing what he termed escalating liability concerns and community safety issues. The man's voice on my voicemail sounded like he'd been gargling gravel and anxiety for breakfast.